Ele é um dos maiores vocalistas do heavy metal, uma das figuras mais simpáticas com quem eu já tive o prazer de conversar. Hoje eu vou tomar uma com Michael Kiske do HELLOWEEN. Antes de continuar, não esquece de curtir o vídeo, assinar o canal, ativar as notificações e considere ser um membro aqui do nosso clube. Dá uma olhada nas vantagens.
Curte nosso conteúdo? Então vem participar do Clube TUPFS. Por uma pequena quantia você vai ter acesso ao grupo do clube no WhatsApp, conteúdos exclusivos, assistir aos vídeos novos antes de todo mundo, dar nota nas resenhas e até escolher tema de episódio. Isso entre outras vantagens, hein? Mais detalhes na descrição. Vem tomar uma com a gente!
Michael Kiske, first of all, it's an honor and a great pleasure for me. I've been a huge Helloween fan since the 80s, and I was very happy when you rejoined the band. So thanks for this meeting, man. Thanks for being here.
Sure. I mean, anytime, you know. It's part of the job. And actually, I do enjoy all the interviews that I've done. And like for a couple of weeks now, we're doing like tons of interviews every week, and it's all just really good. It's great to get a feedback, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, congratulations on the new album. We did a review, and I said it's everything the Helloween fans wanted and more. Because
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Because when we do an album, you know, you, as a musician, you never know how an album is going to be received. We refuse to let all the pressure come too much close to us. We kind of push it away, and you have to have a free mind. And we were just working with the ideas we had, and everybody was trying to, you know, give its own 50 cents to each song, and in the end the album is what it is. It's what it sounds like, you know, when we all make an album together. But of course we want people to react to it in a good way, but you cannot foretell how it's going to happen. So we're all very happy with the feedback that's coming, you know. Great.
So, how are you? I mean, with the pandemic and stuff, how are you guys holding on?
Well, I'm pretty good. I mean, longer breaks are not so unusual, you know, for a band like us. It's nothing unusual to have a break, like even for 2 years or something. But of course, it's a different situation. Mm-hmm. We didn't plan it that way. We wanted to release the album last year. And we wanted to actually already be right in the middle of touring since the end of last year. That was the plan. So we kicked it all, in terms of the touring, we kicked it all to 22. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the world is going through big changes. You know, when you do have a little bit, I don't care about religions, but I'm a spiritual person. You know, yeah. I think religions are misleading people. They're not really leading to spirituality. They're actually fighting spirituality. So like Christ said, you lock the door to the kingdom of heaven. You're not entering yourself, and you try to hinder all the others that want to enter. That's what religions do in my eyes. But when you look at a pandemic like that from a spiritual point of view, you have a different look at it. Because I think it's something that is supposed to help us grow mm-hmm. and to wake up. To wake up in certain areas, because when you look at how things go down, a situation like this brings to the forefront everything that's wrong. You see weak political systems. You can see how sick the news are. You know, the information we're getting. You don't know what you can trust anymore, because it's all so corrupt. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're facing. You know, so even though it is bad, of course, and especially people dying and stuff like that is bad. But it also has a good meaning in sense of being a wake-up call in many ways. You know, I mean, at least that's how I see it. You know, I was kind of expecting something like this happening. You know, like the last 2-3 years, it was kind of in my system. I knew something's going to come, and I don't even think that's the end of it. I mean, the pandemic is probably over next year, I guess, because that's the normal rhythm you have with things like that. But I think mankind needs more. You know, to wake up, because we really on a path that is destroying everything. Yeah. We destroy Earth, we destroy ourselves. You know, we gotta learn to live by what we know, because we know much better. We are actually much better than we're living.
Yes. we are seeing so many people talking wrong things about science and vaccines and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy, you know?
Yeah, you can be critical, you know, but it's like everybody goes, I call it like a fear insanity. People get scared and then they can't think anymore. The fear is kind of pushing the thoughts in directions which are almost insane. You know, I don't agree with everything the medicine does either, but to demonize people that are trying to do something in this pandemic, it's just some form of extremism, I think, you know. Yeah. But it's you know, what I learned a lot during the last year in terms of thinking for myself, you know, because everywhere people trying to pull you into their church, you know, they're trying to make you think they think. They make a religion out of everything, and they're usually very fanatic, you know, and you either go with it and you get sucked in, or you learn to think for yourself and try to figure out, even with the bits and pieces that are trustworthy, to get an opinion yourself. It helps to really learn to stand on your own feet, and I think that's part of the test too, you know.
Yeah. So changing subjects, I want to go back in time a little bit and ask you about the beginning, your beginning. Yeah. What first got you into music, and who inspired you to make music?
It was Elvis. It started all when Elvis, I mean, it was quiet in Europe about Elvis in the last like 4 years of his life, because he wasn't doing very well. He was not happy anymore. You know, he didn't want to be Elvis anymore. Yeah. So he kind of destroyed himself. I didn't know him, but then when he died, they started to show all the stuff on TV. I think I was 9 when he died, and that got me excited about music. My sister, she got an Elvis album, Elvis Forever, which is a double LP. I still have it. She gave that to me because she realized that I turned into an Elvis fan, and she gave that record to me because I was getting it out of her room all the time anyway, listening to it. And that's how it all started. And when I was about maybe 13, I found a new friend who I'm still friend with, who was into metal. And he got me into Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, AC/DC, which I never completely jumped on. I have the main records, but it was more these type of bands like Maiden, Priest, and pretty early on at Metallica with Kill 'Em All. I mean, I was meditating that record. Except Scorpions, you know, later Queensryche. I mean, it was that guy who got me into that type of music. And I still remember I was into the Scorpions a bit earlier already. Animal Magnetism was mainly one record. A friend of my sister gave that to me, and then I heard Run to the Hills on the radio. Yeah. And that was a game changer too. You know, it was about that time that I got into that type of music. But Elvis for me was the starting point.
Yeah, for me it was the Beatles, but well,
that came later. Actually, I forgot the Beatles actually because how can I forget the guy I was talking about? He was also really massively into the Beatles, and we actually started to play Beatles songs around the same time. We got guitars and started to learn the chords and stuff like that. Yeah. That was really important for my own music making. It was Elvis, Beatles, metal.
Wow, good influences. Did you have any lessons, or did you learn from yourself to play, to sing?
I taught myself. I was always someone who figured things out. When I had a very free-minded school that I was in. We were both in that same school. There were mainly hippies from the 70s, which was not too bad. And in that school that I was, it was a very free-minded school, and it was very good for us. You could vote, you could choose certain things. You could choose art or music. There were certain things you could choose what you want to do. Some stuff were fixed, but others you could choose. And of course, we choose music as much as we could. Yeah. And it was very interesting when we had those hours of like guitar learning. We were better than the teachers, so they were really cool. They said, you know what, it doesn't make sense. You know, when I'm trying to teach you, because you know how to play. So they opened up a room for us with drums, electric guitar, amplifiers. We could just play there, and those were our music hours. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And the same school allowed me to use a room in that school to practice with my band for free, even though I wasn't going to that school anymore, even afterwards. Like right before I joined HELLOWEEN, I was still able to practice in a room in that school for free. A pretty amazing school,
Wow, yeah, pretty amazing. You joined HELLOWEEN very young, at the age of 18, I think.
I think I was 18 when I got my first talks with Waiki, and I was 18 when we recorded Keep a One.
Yeah. How did you handle traveling and being away from home? I mean, you were just a kid and already, a rock star.
It was easy because I always wanted to do this, and my home situation wasn't perfect. My father was a bad alcoholic, and my parents were divorced, and it was easy for me to leave my mother's house or apartment. And I always knew that I was going to do this. It was weird. I always knew that I was going to do music. I kind of knew how my life was going to be, and I was so convinced about what we did with Keep a One when we did this. I was totally convinced about it. It's just the greatest stuff, that I wasn't even surprised when it started to sell. I don't think it was really a problem. Also, even in the younger years, I always had this strong spiritual side, okay? Yeah. And it helps you to not take some of the things too serious. Yeah. Some of the things that are not important. I always felt it was important to make music that is exciting or whatever, but I don't think I was sucked in too much about this star kind of thing, Yeah. I don't believe that, I just considered myself lucky,
Yeah. Back in the day, Pink Bubbles Go Ape and Chameleon had some pretty nasty reviews. But in my opinion, they're some of the greatest songs of the entire HELLOWEEN career, like The Chance, Kiss of the Century, When the Sinner, Crazy Cat in the Night. Do you have any regrets from that period?
No, we did the best we could. The situation was difficult after Keeper 2. When Kai Hansen left the band, the whole balance of the band was falling apart. When he was in the band, not because he was the band, he was just one member of the band, but the balance was working. It was fine. There was a good competition between him and Waiki. As soon as he left and Roland got in, it just didn't work anymore. Not because of Roland being bad or anything like that. It was just a different balance, a different chemistry. We were constantly arguing, and it was just bad. And we did the best we could. We still were writing cool songs and stuff. But when it comes to Pink Bubbles, I don't think the choice of taking Chris Tsangarides was good. We should have stick with Tommy Hansen. Chris Tsangarides just wasn't the kind of producer who helped us make more out of everything. He was kind of holding us more back and trying to limit it down to the demos. We kind of re-recorded the demos. The whole phase that made Keeper 2 such a special album was the work in the studio. We were fooling around with sounds and making fun with Rise and Fall. Nothing like that happened on the Pink Bubbles record. It was a pretty difficult production in my memory. And when it comes to Chameleon, we were not even a band anymore. It was like me making a solo record, Waiki making a solo record, making a solo record, but we're just under the name of HELLOWEEN. It was still good songs, but we were not functioning as a band anymore. Yeah. So I honestly think when Andi joined the band was functioning again. It was what the band needed in those days. They needed someone like him, regardless of who you prefer as a singer. It doesn't matter. We were not functioning anymore. And when he got into the band was functioning again. So he sort of saved the band, through the 90s.
Yeah. Michael, you are a very you are a guy with very eclectical musical taste. And after you left
Yeah.
Halloween, you did a lot of different things like Instant Clarity, Place Vendôme, Super Red, the Metal Operas, Kiss in
Yeah.
Somerville. And by the way, I have the Super Red album. I love it. I love it. I like many different things. What about those projects? I mean, now that you are back with Halloween, can you expect a new Unisonic album, a new solo album? What can you tell us about that?
I'm actually now. I am working on a new solo album because of the pandemic. I have more time, than expected, and I just wanted to use the time. So I started to figure out some of my songs, and I will be recording a complete acoustic album with like maybe half of it my own songs, and the other half I will record songs that I love, songs that I grew up with. Not metal songs, not at all. Oh, well, one. There will be one Halloween song that I'll be doing in an acoustic version, song from Waikiki. But that was an idea of our record company, which I didn't even think about. It's a good idea. It's gonna come out next year sometime. But that's what I'm doing. So there will be a solo record. Unisonic. We wanted to make a third one before the Pumpkins United thing came up. We were right in the pre-plan of making a third record, but it was impossible to get Kai Hansen interested. He was doing Hansen and Friends, and he was like relaunching Gamma Ray Records, and we just like in a very friendly way, we were all sitting together and say, you know what, just concentrate on your stuff, and we get Gus G in and make a third record. So we asked Gus G, and he was like all in for it. It was the time when he was still with Ozzy. But then like a couple of weeks, they already started, swapping ideas around, like Dennis Ward and Gus G. And I'm sure it would have been an interesting album. But then Gus G made a step back again. He said, well, I don't always want to be the replacement guitarist, Yeah. So he kind of stepped out of it again. And then the Pumpkins United thing came up, which had a long story before it came to that point, But it's like, and then he got out of Ozzy, and then he wanted to do it, but then the time slot was gone to do it. I would still love to make another Unisonic, but that's really something you have to talk to Dennis Ward about, because when it comes to Unisonic, honestly, I know that Kai Hansen fans always believe everything is Kai Hansen, but without Dennis Ward, you wouldn't have Unisonic. Dennis was the working horse. He was the one writing the key songs. He was the one producing it, mixing it. He's an amazing human, and he's an amazing producer, songwriter, and musician. And if he's up for it, and there's a slot like whatever after another nice tour with Halloween, when there's a longer break time, I wouldn't mind making another Unisonic,
Yeah. So how the idea of a reunion with Halloween? I mean, for a very long time, it was completely out of the table.
It was completely impossible for me for a very long time, and it was a very slow process. It's like in the 90s, I was on a crusade. I was disappointed. I was pissed about how everything went down, not just within the band. That was of course the main kind of thing, the main disappointment, but also the industry and what the metal scene was getting at me. It's like I was just overthrown with negativity. In my own world, I was just making an album. I was not trying to fake Halloween. I was just recording my songs in a very natural way. Like I think that's the way you should do it. And not everybody was against it, but I received some very dumb statements in certain critics, like, doesn't sound like Halloween. Well, it's not trying to. It's like I kind of got fed up with everything and very disappointed about it. How little it really is about true music and expressing yourself. How much it really is just like the other music scenes too, to a certain extent. You know, in the end, today I understand a lot better why fans are like that. But in those days, I didn't. In those days, I felt attacked. You know, I felt like that's the wrong thing to do. It was important for me. Those years were really good for me. I learned a lot in terms of shaping my personality and all that. Today, I know fans don't want to hurt you. They just know you and they love you for something that you've done. And when something you do is completely off, they're just disappointed. Yeah. And they express that. And I understand now, but in those days, I did not understand. I was like completely idealistic and, you know. Yeah. So the 90s were completely off the table for me. I don't even think Helloween would have cared in those years. It was going good for them, you know. And to me, getting first steps into the direction of this type of music was definitely Avantasia. It was definitely Toby talking me into putting vocals on Reach Out for the Light, you know, these kind of things. And I rejected it at first, but he continued to call me up and convince me about it. And it was good that he did, because I kind of realized I enjoy it. You know, I still enjoy it. And after that, I did not join. I was not part of the first Avantasia tour. I rejected that. But after that, Serafino from Frontiers Records offered me not only a solo deal, but he was also offering this idea of Place Vendôme, like more AOR kind of rock type of music. If I would be interested in it, and I wanted to hear the songs. Yeah, it's cool stuff. That was another step. With Place Vendôme, I got in touch with Dennis Ward. And then later on, Dennis and Costa showed up in Hamburg, I think maybe around 2008 or 9, I'm not sure exactly, and offered me, or had this idea, why not making a real band, you know, instead of just all project, making a real band. And so Unisonic started to happen. And then on the second Avantasia tour, I was part of it. And it was Costa who was managing Unisonic and me by that time. And he said, you should actually go on that tour, because you haven't been on stage for over 20 years now. Yeah. You know, and it's a great thing to get back, get a feeling back for being on stage, because you don't have much to do in Avantasia. You just sing a few bits and pieces. I always call it paid holidays, really, you know, because you don't do much, but it was perfect. It was a perfect bunch of people. It was great for me to get a feeling back. And I'll never forget the first shows we did in South America. It was amazing, you know. But on that tour, Kai Hansen was part. He was also there. So we kind of stood on stage together again. And there was this sort of magic going down. So we started to talk. Yeah. You know, we should do something together again. And it ended up with him joining Unisonic. So that was another step. But still, I wouldn't care about any Helloween reunion or anything like that until in 2013. I was on another tour with Avantasia. It was a festival we played. I ran into Michael Wycath backstage, and he stood in front of me and he said, "What have I done that you can't forgive me?" That was his line, and I was like, I just noticed there was no more anger. Yeah, it was gone. So I said to him, you know what, I think I've forgiven you a long time ago. And that was a game changer inside for me in terms of Helloween. Still, we didn't talk about anything like that, at least not in my head. And it was another year later when I was playing 3 shows with Unisonic in Spain, here in Europe. And after one of those shows, it was great shows. The band was getting was getting very good by that time. And after one of those shows, Kai Hansen said to me, you know what, Michael, we just got to do something with Helloween one day, you know, before we're getting too old. And I said, you know what, I'm open. And that's how it all started. After I said that, Costa was in the room. Costa was playing the drums with Unisonic. Costa is part of the bottom row management. He mentioned that statement to Jan Bayati, who was the manager of Helloween. Jan called me up and checked out how serious I was, and that's how the real thing started, you know. Then I had like long conversations with Mikey on the phone. After that, Jan wanted me to fly over to Tenerife to spend some time with Andi because we didn't know each other, and Jan very truthfully said, if you guys don't get along, it doesn't make any sense. So I flew over and I spent like 2 weeks with him almost every day, and it felt like I knew him. It felt like, I've said that in many interviews now, but it really felt like I knew him. You know, it's almost like a karma. I'm sure it is a karma connection somehow. But after that, going down that well, we actually did the first real meetings where we, and it was just about a tour at first. At first, we just talked about a tour. We only made contracts for a tour, and after that first tour, as hard as it was for me, health-wise, because I caught something in South America, and I carried it with me the whole tour. But even though it was a hard tour, we got along perfectly, and there was a great spirit on stage and all that. And after that tour in 2017, we started talking about a possible album, you know, everything step by step. But as you can see, it was a process of many years to get points that I'm able to do that, you know.
Yeah, so the album was the next logical step, and congratulations, it's a great album. My favorite tracks are Out for the Glory, Best Time, Indestructible, Robot King, Down in the Dumps, Skyfall. But I want to know what are your favorite tracks? What tracks you really enjoy to record, to sing, and you are looking forward to sing on tour?
Yeah. When it comes to singing, it's definitely Out for the Glory and Skyfall. Those ones I felt like comfortable with right away. I love them. I love Angels from Sascha. It's a great song. It also has an interesting spirit. I love Fear of the Fallen. Yeah. It's a track. It's a track that Andi did, but he was writing it for both singers. Yeah. And it works like I like a whole bunch of the songs, you know. But honestly, we have to play them. We have to play them like in the rehearsal room and live. That's when you really get. It's like I didn't even practice the songs when we recorded them. I something like a song like Out for the Glory. I knew the song, but on the demo, Mikey did the vocals. And I could not he can't sing. He's just screaming, and you're just trying to figure out what the song is all about. And I did not know what the song was supposed to be. So when I was in Tenerife and did the vocals for that song, and on that evening I was learning it, and then I recorded it right away. And then I really understood the song. It was really that night that I did the vocals. It was one evening really. Yeah. But my favorites still have to unfold in the future. But I definitely Out for the Glory, Skyfall, Angel, Fear of the Fallen. You know, those are the ones that pop into my head right away.
I have to ask: are you back for good with Helloween? I mean, you said first step was a tour, now an album, and. There's a tour scheduled for next year with Hammerfall, and after that, are you already talking about the future with Helloween?
When I at first, the only thing that I really cared about was making peace. Honestly, it was the plain human thing behind it. You know, I did not know what to expect. I did not know how successful this was going to be. You know, I didn't know what the market is like. I didn't care for these things for ages. So I had no idea. I was very surprised when how quickly most of the places were sold out. And big places like 2 times 8,000 in Sao Paulo, like 14,000 in Spain and Poland, and there were other places where we never played that big, at least not at my time. You know, I was very surprised by it. But in the beginning, I just wanted to make peace. I wanted to get it completely cleared out so that I don't have to die. Yeah. with unnecessary enemies. Okay, but that has changed. Now it means something again. Now it's like, and everybody is really happy, and especially when something gets such a positive feedback from the audience, from the public, it kind of carries it, you know. And as long as we get along like this, and no one dies, and you know, you never know what's going to happen in 3 years, in 2 years, in 1 year. I mean, look at the pandemic. Who would have thought? You know. Yeah, but the spirit is amazing. It feels great. Everybody's happy, and for as long as things go like that, and especially when the spirit on stage is like it is, and the fans want to see us, I think we're going to continue. You know, we're all like not the youngest anymore. Yeah. I mean, some of the guys in the band, they're really getting old now. I'm in my early 50s. I'm 53 now. That's still okay, but I don't even believe that we will do this like for 10 years. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like when you have reached an age like that, you don't plan so far ahead. You know, you just take things step by step. I don't know, but at the moment it's great, and at the moment that's how we are a band now, an unusual band with 7 instead of 5. Yeah. You know.
On this subject of growing old and stuff, we are seeing a lot of musicians, especially singers from the 80s when you started with Helloween, they are losing their voices and retiring. I mean, for me, you were still in your prime.
Yeah, I think I'm better. I think I sound better. You know, when I recorded the first Keeper records, I was a teenager, and I sound like a teenager. Yeah. You know, I had a good energy, but I think I sound more full. Yeah. I have a better tone, and I can sing all the heights and stuff like that. Yeah, honestly, I think this is a very individual thing. I mean, someone like Ronnie Dio never ran into any problems. Yeah. He got really old in the end, and he was still able to do all the stuff. Robert Halford, you know, he sings so heavy for so many years now. I don't know if you're aware that Judas Priest with Halford exists since '73. Yeah.
Big Priest fan here.
I mean, and a guy can still freaking do it. He can still do it, you know, and he's a living proof of what's possible, you know, even when you sing heavy. And I think you just got to work with your voice, and you got to adjust to the changes of your body. And if you're mindful with what you're doing and you don't catch anything, you know, there are diseases that can destroy your voice and stuff like that. If not, Shania Twain had something like that. You know, she I don't know what it was. I saw an article that she had something, an infection or something with the vocal cords, and that she lost her voice, and it was a long time getting it back. Unless nothing. I mean, when something like that happens, there's nothing you can do. It's just God's will. You know, it's just you have to deal with it. But I don't think you have to lose your voice when you get older. It really depends on.
Yeah.
And you got to work. You got to work with it.
Yeah, you know? I mean, Glenn Hughes is still out there. I mean, he's a freaking monster.
And Bruce Dickinson had always had difficulties in a certain phase of his career, like in the '90s or whatever. And then I saw an interview where he sat down and he was kind of relearning certain things because he was developing a way of pushing way too much live, you know. And suddenly he sounded fucking great again. I was shocked when I heard him in 2003. I think it was Rock in Rio or something. He was suddenly singing "Run to the Hills" in the original phrases and stuff like that. You know? And now after he had this cancer thing, in the very early phase after they played again, you could tell he sounded weird, obviously. And he was going through chemotherapy, but now he sounds freaking great again. You know, I think he's another example of willpower. Yeah, you know? And this is what I always loved about Bruce Dickinson, the passion he puts into it. He was always the kind of guy who gave everything he has. You know, and he kind of burned himself a little in the '90s because of giving all that stuff, but he always comes back, and it's amazing, very inspiring.
Michael, do you ever think about your legacy as a singer? We are talking about a lot of great singers, Dio, Bruce Dickinson, Halford, and Michael Kiske. You set a pretty high benchmark back in the 80s, and you are one of the biggest influence for so many metal singers. Do you ever think about your legacy, your influence in the musical industry?
Not much, because I think that's just a normal way it goes. I mean, when I started, you always are excited about someone when you start as a young musician. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter who you ask. There will always be musicians that inspired them to get the idea to do that. You know, I was influenced by some of the bands that you've mentioned, and that kind of, including Elvis, that kind of formed my style, and I made my own thing out of it. And it's very normal. It's very normal that you get excited about something that previous generations do. It's just important to make your own thing out of it. That's important. You have to have your own. You have to develop your own brand. You know, your own sound. If you sound exactly like someone else, and people cannot tell who it is, then you don't have enough identity. That's the only problem that can. Sometimes your idols are so strong that your own identity gets covered, and it doesn't really come through. But to be influenced by other musicians is very normal. So I am happy about it. If I inspire anyone to sing or to do something, perfect, you know. But it's nothing unusual. It's just the way it goes, you know.
Michael, I have a few questions. We have some supporters in our channel, and I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Cristiano Moura wants to know how was the dynamics of the composition dynamics of the new album with so many writers in the band, and especially during the pandemic. Was it difficult? How was the process?
Well, the release of the album was pushed back. That's why many believe the pandemic had an influence on it, but it did not. We finished the whole recording before it started. I was finishing. I did the last vocal bits in Tenerife right when we heard about it first. You know, and I left there when there was the first little restrictions, you know, happening. So that it didn't have any influence on the album. It didn't have any influence on the songwriting or on the lyrics, you know.
Yeah. Marcel Melo is asking, on the new tour in the future, do you plan new duets of songs from the Andi era, or you?
Oh yeah.
You guys will mix things up and.
Whatever comes to mind, you know. This idea, I mean, he has been singing my songs that I did for ages, you know, for like over 20 years. He was singing songs that I used to do the vocals for. So it's a pretty close idea that I might sing some of his stuff now, you know. We actually had this idea for the very first tour that I would sing Why, just me singing Why. But in the rehearsal room, it felt like we should do it together, because it always has the verses are twice.
Yeah.
You know, you repeat the same verse twice. So it's like, it makes sense. One sings one, the other one sings, and then we sing together. So we just naturally changed it to a duet. But we have this idea that I might even be doing some stuff of his, you know, and because it gives an interesting kind of new approach to things, you know. We might even in the future we might even do 2 recordings of song. When we have, usually it's pretty easy to figure out what is best for the song. It's very easy. Everyone can sing every song, but there are certain songs that are very good for me. And the song shines, and there are other songs that are very good for Andi, and when he does it, it's just better. So it's like, but when we have a song that both of us can sing extremely well, we might as well just do it twice, you know, and have 2 versions of things like that, you know.
So can we expect to hear you sing songs like Power or I Can?
Actually, Power is one song where Mikey on the first tour always wanted me to. Was it Power? I think it was Power. It was one. I think it was the song. Is it from Waiki? Is the song written by Waiki?
I really can't remember now, but I can do a quick search.
Because I think that's the song he always wanted me to sing, especially the verses or something. I'm sure things like that can happen. You know, I mean, when you look at the album catalog of the band, we have done so much with this band. There's so much we can pick from, we can choose from. You know, I would love to do We Got the Riot, for instance. You know, it's a bitch to sing, but it is very different with this sort of marching chorus and stuff. It would add a really different flavor. But there are many songs that we could do. Save Us, Twilight of the Gods, or, you know, there are a whole bunch of songs since there's such a long history of the band. There's so many things that we could do. We could easily make three-hour sets live with completely different songs, you know, because we have so much material, which is great.
Yeah.
But not easy to figure out the set, you know, for it's always difficult.
Power is it's indeed from White.
Yeah, that is probably the song. He wanted me to sing it. But I was a little lazy. I had to learn so many other stuff so that it kind of fell under the table. But it might happen. Yeah,
so to wrap things up, João Aranha wants to know, you kind of already, answered that, but will the future upcoming tours will feature the 7-head beasts of the Halloween with 7 members?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to cut the band back down again. The bigger circus is always better than the smaller circus, you know. It's like when you pulled something off like that, that was the risk actually that the band was taking.
Yeah.
You know, when you do something like that and you have to go back to how it was before, it's never good, because it's just more entertaining the way it is now, because there's so much more happening on stage now with the songs we could do. So it was a risk that the band was taking, and we have definitely the plan to continue like that. It makes better shows, you know.
Yeah. So Michael, well, thanks again for this interview. Do you have any message for your Brazilian fans?
Oh yeah, I honestly I really miss playing, especially now with so much insecurity. You know, no one knows when it's going to happen again. Even though in some countries it already is happening again, but you develop an appreciation for what used to be normal. You know, just waiting at airport gates. You know, in the past, you used to complain, you know, when you missed a flight or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. You will just be thankful to be able to do this again whenever it comes back. And the last concert that we did was Rock in Rio.
Yeah.
We played before Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was an amazing spirit. I remember that I had difficulties to get to the festival area because there was so much traffic.
Yeah.
I was in a hotel that was maybe 20 minutes away, but even after 3 hours, we were not there.
Yeah.
There was one security guy that didn't let us in. He didn't let us in through the artist entrance because it was a different car. It was marked to be part of the festival, but he wanted to be a smartass. So we had to go the long road, and I couldn't have made it. I would have missed the concert. So security people came to the car and they brought us by foot to the festival.
Brazilian feelings, man. Brazilian feelings.
I jumped into the
so sorry.
My clothes and on the stage, and it was a great concert. But that's the last memory I have. Yeah. You know, playing Rock in Rio. Over 100,000 people, so it just sticks in your head. The last concert, you know, it just sticks in your head. I can't wait. I can't wait to play again without masks and without restrictions.
Yeah, that's important. So, thank you again. It's been it was a great honor and a big pleasure. Thank you for speak with us. Thank you for be back with Helloween and for all the albums, all your beautiful career. Thank you, man.
Thanks for your support, man.
Se você curtiu esse vídeo, então não deixe de assinar o canal, ativar as notificações, deixa o joinha e aproveita para assistir aí algum dos vídeos antigos do canal, beleza? É isso aí, um abraço, valeu!